If you are a CEO or a senior executive in an organization and you have a particular issue that as part of your objectives for the current year you have to deal with, you obviously start off with a personal motivation of actually doing something significant with this so that you're in the right position at the end of the year. What we do is in our process we set up a half-day planning meeting. And this is the sort of eyeball-to-eyeball meeting where we need to go through a number of things. And first thing we need to do is we need to understand something about you, your organization, where you've come from, what's happened to you in the last few years. And we pick up a certain amount of information because the technique that we use is actually a facilitated group process where we come in, a team of people from our organization come in and we actually set it up and we facilitate the workshops. So as facilitators, we need at least an initial understanding of who you are, what you're about, where you've come from, what some of your legacy issues are, for example. And then we start focusing down on really defining the issue you want to tackle. Now, it can happen that a senior manager will talk about an issue, but in also talking about the more general situation that you find yourself in a business context, we have a good understanding from having been working with and developing this process in a wide variety of industries and situations for the past 15 years. We can often spot where, in fact, that the client needs to come up a level. In other words, let's, for example, say they believe the problems with their sales force has actually happened in one situation. What we glean from getting the background of where the company actually was, we perceived, in fact, there was actually a somewhat larger issue, of which the problem with the sales force may indeed be a genuine problem that needs to be tackled. But the bigger business issue really was the one that the client should be tackling, in our opinion. And we had a conversation about that, and they agreed to, in fact, redefine the issue. So instead of being at a lower level, focused on only the sales force, the issue was defined at a higher level and was more overarching in terms of the total management of the business. So having defined the issue we're going to work on, we explore with the client what they really want out of the end of this process of ours. And in the vast majority of cases, they want an action plan to go and fix what they perceive the issue to be. So if I stay with the cost reduction example, they may actually, the target may be an action plan to take 10% or 20% of their external procurement costs out of their budget within the next 12 months. So they want an action plan to do that. So we're very, very clear about both the issue as defined by the client, so we both understand the issue in the same way, and we're very, very clear about what the deliverable is at the end of the process. With that understanding, in this planning meeting, we then move on to designing the team of people that need to be at the table, and they are three particular classes or types of people. There's obviously a need to have key stakeholders represented on this team, tackling the issue as we've defined it. We also need a number of people who are content experts. They may be the current VP of operations or the VP of marketing, etc., responsible for the operational aspects of the organization. They know what goes on day in, day out, how things are working in practice, what the relationship with customers are, what the problems are with their supply chain, whatever. These are the content people. Then the third class of people that we often include in these teams is if you know, having defined, I need a team to go and change something, you may be in an environment, for example, where there's a critical constituency that are going to be affected by the change. And for example, if you take a very common situation, you are in a unionized manufacturing environment. Well, a critical constituency, for example, is the union membership, both the union as organization and the union membership, because they're going to be affected by changes you're going to make, say, in your manufacturing operations. So it may be that, in fact, we need people from all three of those groups on the team. So part of the exercise in the planning meeting is to, in fact, identify who the really key individuals are that have the right knowledge, experience, and credibility in the organization that they really do need to be on this team. Now, if you take a very careful approach to the design of a team, with the mindset that you don't want one more chair occupied than needs to be occupied. This is not an exercise in filling a room full of people and making sure you've got everybody in the whole organization in the room at the same time. But if you take that approach, but at the same time, the other side of that coin is that you won't move forward with the team activity if you're actually missing one of the critical people who needs to be involved. So it's two sides of the same coin. But if you take that very careful design approach, even in very, very large corporations, and I'm talking about corporations that may have 80, 100,000, employees worldwide, with a careful design, in the vast majority of cases, we end up with teams of approximately 20 people, covering the three groups. With that team of 3 people, we set up a series of workshops. Now, if the team is approximately 20 people, the workshops really only take about 6 days in total. And we prefer to run them as a group of 3 days, and then a break of a couple of weeks, and then bring the team back for another 3 days. And in those workshops, in the first workshop, we do this initial analysis, which is the first stage of the process, to really get to grips with a deeper understanding of what the reality is they're facing, not what they think it is when they walk into the room with their separate mental models. But generally, they jointly develop a model that they collectively and individually believe is a more accurate representation of the factors at play in this situation and how they are connected and interacting and influencing each other. So they create that model, that analysis, as a first step in the process.